This is Champagne Confidential,
where real conversations meet real life.
We're a therapist
And a lawyer.
And longtime friends
who are not afraid to talk about the things most people avoid.
We're talking motherhood,
relationships,
work, pressure, and boundaries.
Hard conversations.
The kind you usually only have after hours.
No scripts.
No filters.
Just honest conversations.
So grab a glass. You're invited into the conversation. Growth is never easy. It's exciting, but it's challenging. You highlight on your social media all the good things that are happening, the big moments, right? But then on the other side of it, there's always the growing pains, the headaches that kind of come with it.
I found myself hiring for the position less the quality of the person. Your business is successful because of the culture you've created.
Hi, Val. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, good. I'm really excited for today's topic because I think I need to show up for it. I know you have been in business for almost 20 years now, and we're going to be talking about business red flags today. And I have been through it a little bit. I've been in business just about 5 years.
You've had a rough year.
I had a rough year for sure. Just growth is never easy. It's exciting, but it's challenging. And just, you know, it'll feel like I have moments where things quiet down a little bit and then they pick back up again. And I know this is probably just part of business owning to some extent. But today we're going to kind of tap into all of the business red flags, the champagne problems that come with owning a business. So cheers to that.
So it's funny you say that because I feel like people don't recognize, a lot of people who are in business, who aren't in business, I don't think they recognize the ebbs and flows of a business. Right? You get started, you're excited. Obviously, it's not easy in the beginning, but you hit your stride and you're enjoying life and then you start to expand. And I think sometimes that's where things get a little crazy and unexpected. And I feel like in one way, it's great, right? Because that's what you want. You want to be growing. And I think if you hit a plateau, then where are you going? That's not a good thing.
Right.
So I feel like the problems that you've had this year are kind of great problems, champagne problems, as you call them, because you're growing. And I mean, it's so natural.
Yeah, it's a lot. I feel like it's something that we don't talk a lot about as business owners, right? It's you highlight on your social media all the good things that are happening, the big moments, right? But then on the other side of it, there's always the growing pains, the headaches that kind of come with it, and also just the learning experiences. I feel like I'm constantly learning by default, not necessarily having that like forewarning for certain things. So that's why I really love this episode today, because I feel like I can hopefully get some mentoring from you a little bit and share, certainly some of my experiences with our viewers on just what I've gone through and sort of accomplished and overcame over the last 5 years of business. So I think that'll definitely be helpful to me and to everyone listening.
Yeah, well, hit me with it. What?
Yeah.
Where do you want to start?
Well, I feel like, let me see. I feel like there's just so much, right? The hiring process for me has been a bit of a challenge. I think when I grew the practice from the beginning, I was really slow and steady, which was great. And then when I expanded to a new space, I needed to hire people to obviously man the space, right? And initially, I was very much going in with intention with my hiring process. And then as we grew really quickly, it was more about like, okay, I have to have the help because we have the volume now, we're getting the exposure, people are coming in. But where am I putting all these people? How am I going to help all these people, right? So I felt a little bit of the pressure to hire a large kind of group right off the bat, rather than kind of sticking to what my intuition always told me, which was slow and steady.
And hire the right person.
Right, finding the right people. So I would be curious to know a little bit about your hiring process and what has worked for you, what hasn't worked for you.
So as you said, I've been doing this for about 20 years. When I first started, it was just me, like yourself. And then you need the help. So you hire. And in the beginning, it's easier to hire quality over quantity, right? Because you know exactly what you're looking for. You need one person, you need two people. It's a little easier in smaller numbers.
Mhm.
I've definitely been in your position where we've gotten to a point where we needed someone immediately or we needed a few people immediately. And I found myself hiring for the position, less the quality of the person. And I think that's the number one red flag when it comes to hiring, the hiring process. You have to take that seriously because your business is successful. And this is what I've learned. Your
Mhm.
business is successful because of the culture you've created, right? I think that my business is successful because it's slightly different from other trust and estate and elder law attorneys where we're very personal. You know, we
Mhm.
try to keep it very down to earth. It's important to me that my clients understand, everything that we're telling them and doing for them. I don't like to talk in a lot of legalese for them. I want even my office, it's a house converted into an office. And honestly, I wanted something where people would come and they'd feel super comfortable. So the same thing holds true for the people I have in my office, right? It's so important for me, for my employees to treat my clients with the same kindness and respect and get to know them and call them by name and, silly things like that. But that's who I am, right? So in your business, you similarly should look for people who will kind of embody what you're trying to
Mhm.
grow, right? And, even from the standpoint of the employees interacting with one another, you know, I'm a mother. Not all of my employees are mothers or fathers or parents at all. But I think that I've learned, and I learned this at a very early age. I remember working for someone and the boss, the one male, one female, they both had children. And they thought nothing of leaving the office for things like the Thanksgiving Day parade for their children or a sporting event that they had. And I remember thinking to myself, I want that in life. That's why I left to start my own
Mhm.
practice. But I also remember looking at one of the other attorneys who also had children, and she never left. She wasn't allowed to because she was held to that billable hour. And I remember thinking, I never want to do that to someone. And it doesn't necessarily have to be even for children, right? Somebody might have, I don't know, a family obligation. They want to visit their grandmother who's in town or whatever the case may
Right.
be. To me, that's so important to respect people's personal life as well as their business life. So, again, just getting back to the hiring and culture, I think when you hire, you look for people who really get you, who understand your business, who respect it as much as you do, and who can kind of adapt to the culture you're looking to create. So, hiring off the cuff is probably the worst
Yeah,
thing
red
that you
flag.
could
Yeah,
ever do,
for sure.
you know?
Yeah.
And it's not easy.
Right. And I think that a lot of business owners find themselves, no matter what business you're in, whether you're like selling t-shirts or in,
Sure.
therapy or whatever, is just wanting to continue the growth and the fear that if you don't meet the need right away, that you're going to lose people. And I think
Right.
that's been a learning lesson for me is just that the damage control that happens after when you haven't hired intentionally
Right.
puts you in that position anyway, right? Because then you end up having to kind of go back and figure out how to rework certain situations or make it better, kind of, smooth things over with people. And that in itself puts you back in a situation that you don't want to be in the first place, of potentially losing clients or
Right.
business, right? So I think that's definitely something that I really have learned over the last couple of years and just trying to find quality people that are in alignment with my business, with my
Right.
mission, and recognizing that sometimes that takes a little bit of time to sift through and find the right
And
person.
that's okay, because when you do find that right person, they're going to stick with you long term,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah.
It's hard because I think some people also in the interview process present themselves
Hmm.
really well, right? So some people interview fabulously. And then when they actually get into the position, you're like, wait, where did that person go? Who are you?
Right.
I
I
didn't hire
know.
you. I think having other people that you trust in your organization hire also is very helpful.
Yes. Yes.
So, I have a right hand who's really been with me for over 10 years now. And to be honest with you, she's the first layer, right? I have her meet with anyone I'm interviewing first. And if she doesn't think they're good, it's not even worth it for me to meet with them. If she thinks they're great, I really trust her. And I think she maybe sees things at a different,
Hmm.
angle than I do. She has really helped make that process easier. So if there's someone in your organization who you trust,
Right.
who, you feel will ask the right questions, knows exactly what you're looking for, it's nice to have. And then listen, they're going to be working with this person too.
Hmm.
So to know that they can go hand in hand together is also really helpful.
Yeah, no, definitely. I actually just recently started doing that. I have a clinical supervisor that works with us, and I am kind of the front line of screening, so it's a little bit the other way around. But typically, then I pass them to her to sort of do like a second interview, and then they pop back to me, and we've been doing a third interview. So it's sort of my intention there is hopefully to really kind of get a full perspective. And I feel like, too, another thing just through the interview process, I try really hard not to make the interview super formal. Like, I
Right.
try to make it more conversational, especially in my line of work where part of the job is conversation. So if you can't hold a conversation, I mean, it's the entire job, really.
Right.
So if you can't have a conversation and make people feel comfortable in the interview, I mean, that's certainly a signal to me that if someone's coming in for therapy, they're not going to be comfortable talking to someone. So I do find that kind of taking that more conversational approach just allows you to see the person a little bit differently than maybe if it were some uptight interviews, back and forth questioning where it's intimidating, and just to see how they're able to carry the conversation. Are they able to kind of see the cues that I'm sending out and trying to be in alignment with what I'm about and if
Right.
it matches, while also considering that there might be some nerves involved,
Sure.
so it's that kind of fine balance there.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, people, like I said earlier, people interview great, right? So sometimes when you're asking those questions that they're expecting,
Hmm.
they're going to be able to answer them in a way that they seem like they fit the position. And it's not always the case. I know asking the harder questions, right? Getting to really know someone. My husband owns, Mark owns his own business as well. And in his interview process, he actually asks very unique questions. And to be honest with you, I've even brought him in on
Oh,
interviews just because he asks those questions that are a little more personality based, because so much of what we do, you know, you're in the business of talking to people, communicating with people. I have a little bit of a sales element. I have to be kind hearted with my clients. People nowadays have a real difficulty when it comes to communication.
mhm.
And that is something that I've noticed, obviously, through COVID with our own children. Um, I don't know if you've seen that even in the hiring process. A lot of these upcoming employees or interviewees, they come in and they have been in the digital era. Everything they do is on TikTok and Instagram, and they're not used to picking up the phone or eye contact. And it's really hard to, for me at least, to hire the person who can actually communicate with a client. The simplest thing, looking somebody in the eye, being polite, having those cues, where they understand just how to communicate overall. And I think that's something that we're going to continue to see over time, and something that I'm telling my own children, make sure that you learn.
Right, right. It's so funny you bring that up. I was just at a networking event last week, and it was really primarily counselors, but there were other wellness providers there, and there was one gentleman there, an older gentleman, and we got to chatting for quite a bit. And his whole business is built around teaching children communication
I love
skills.
that.
He worked for Johnson and Johnson. He had like a whole sales background, and he's like, "This is what's missing for our kids." And I have noticed within our school district that they do make some efforts. I know my son just recently had like an interviewing process at school where he had to get dressed up, and they focused on, making sure you can look someone in the eye, have a handshake, talk about things you enjoy outside of, just like the typical, what are your strengths and weaknesses type questions, which I thought was a really great thing.
That's great.
But meeting this man, I said, I even said to him, there was a couple of social workers from our school in our district there. And I said, talk to those women, because I would be in complete support of something like this being implemented in our school system,
Absolutely.
whether that's an after school thing or something that, is brought into the classroom of just really, I feel like we have to be so much more intentional about teaching these skill sets. Now even with college, there's so much that's online courses where you can be completely removed from the communication
Yeah.
element of how we live our lives, right? You can have a class where you don't even have a professor, you're doing it on your own. There isn't the need to work with classmates. There isn't the need to necessarily be out in the community at all, where really it creates so much disconnect, you know?
It's so true. I mean, there isn't, if you think about it, you really don't have to think much at all, right?
Mhm.
For college applications, you can use Chat GPT and ask the question and get a great answer. My son has a project and he needed to create some sort of, art. There were certain parameters. I plugged them all into Chat GPT and I got the answer. And I'm like, they're great answers, but I'm hesitant to listen to it because I feel like does everyone get the same answers? I don't even know if it works like that.
Yeah.
But the reality is when you almost have to adapt to that and understand that that is going to be a part of our life. And you can get the right answers and sound like you know what you're talking about. But when push comes to shove and you're in front of a person and they ask you a question and you can't turn to your phone and say, wait, let me just ask AI if they have the answers to that for me.
Right.
You have to be able to have people skills. And I think that is, the fact that the schools are offering that is phenomenal. I looked into, summer camp for my kids to see if there was anything like that out there for
That would
communication.
be I should bring that
right?
back to Bob.
I mean, seriously, because
Seriously, because I think that would be a great thing if there was like a little bit of
yeah.
a group or
And listen, it's not their fault. They grew up
they're growing
like
up in this era.
this,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they don't even pick up a phone. They don't even know how. I don't even think my sons have the phone icon on their cell phones. Like they text, and then if they want to call me, they FaceTime.
Yeah, that's so true.
So
I'm
they
always
don't.
like, stop FaceTiming. Just call me.
Right. They just don't do it, And honestly, even having to get past that layer that we had to when we called a friend and their parent answered. And we were
Oh,
like,
yeah.
is Danielle there?
Yes,
Having to
yes.
communicate with someone else
Right.
that maybe you weren't totally comfortable with. Our kids don't have to do that.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because I feel like it depends on the child of where what their comfort zone is, right?
Right.
Of what it could really create isolation in so many ways. I will say my daughter is a very extroverted type girl, right? And it's interesting because she doesn't have, we don't call up, like I remember when I was a kid, my mom would be like, go call and order a pie, from the pizza place and like trying to encourage me to feel comfortable on the phone. My daughter has found ways to do this herself, which is she'll be like, I want to find out about, if Five Below has the new squishy that she's looking for. And she'll be like, can I call them? And I'm like, yeah, go right ahead. And she's
Wow.
calling up and asking honestly enjoying the process because I feel like sort of depending on the person, it's almost like her wiring of
Right.
wanting connection and wanting to be independent in a way. And finding a way to do that that's outside of, just looking it up online, right? And of course, I think there's a place for ChatGPT. I think it can be useful. It
Sure.
can streamline things. It can make, organization easier at times. But being able to really, hone in and have the skill sets and then that being your backup plan if you need to check in on something or you're not sure about something, but not allowing it to be your kind of frontline
Right.
way of going about it, because in social situations, it's just not going to serve you.
Right. And listen, you have to embrace it, right? It's here. I even think teachers have embraced it. You have to embrace AI. You have to, as a business owner, I have to embrace it. AI, ChatGPT, all of the above. I mean, there's so many layers to it. But what I know with certainty is when it comes to the hiring process, I would be very quick to hire someone who can sit in a room with me and tell me about their life and tell me about things they're interested in and be engaged.
Right.
I would hire them over someone who comes in with a 100 GPA who has a very impressive resume but cannot communicate with me. I would
Yeah.
be very quick to hire the communicative person because I could teach that person. You cannot, you cannot teach personality at the hiring level. We can do it now. So if, with kids, we can kind of mold them, but I've learned that. And I've learned that's probably one of the I'll hire someone like, oh my goodness, they know, look at everything that they know. I'm going to hire them and they'll do great. But if they don't have the people skills, again, for my
Your job,
particular,
right. Right.
job, if they don't have those people skills, which again is such a big part of the culture that that I'm looking to
Same.
create,
Yeah.
it's not even worth it.
It's not a good
You
fit.
can't teach them.
Right. Right.
So, you need to know what you're hiring for.
Yeah,
Is
and
really what
even
it comes
just
down
like
to.
people that use the chat GPT as the shortcut, like you're mentioning, sort of like around the theme of resume writing, right? I can look at a resume and know what's
They're all the same.
They're all the
It's the same
same. It's the
resume.
same language. It's the same format.
Yeah.
Or the emails that go back and forth. And I'm not going to sit here and say I've never done a chat GPT email. Sometimes it makes things easier, but I will always go back to it and be like, how can I make this more human?
Right.
Because this sounds, when there's dashes and bold lettering and everything seems so proper and not in a way that I would ever use, my vocabulary or ways of describing things, to just be in tune to that
Yeah.
as an employee, that okay, this is going to probably put up a little bit of a red flag for someone looking, where they might just pass my resume over because it doesn't shine what I'm about. It doesn't show my personality. It doesn't show my, what I'm capable of and the uniqueness that I bring to
But
the
it's
position.
almost perfect because that's showing you that is the type of employee you're hiring. You're hiring the person who is going to use the easiest route, and they don't really care because anybody could use Chat GPT to create the resume and then go back into it and say, okay, well, how do I fix this? How do I make it more personal?
Right.
What can I add to it? And I think that's great.
It's a
I
tool.
think I actually think that's very intelligent. But when you just kind of do it and send it out as is, I mean, I've received resumes where they've left other employers' names
no.
or they've spelt my name wrong. And I'm
Right.
thinking to myself, this is the kind of carelessness you put into your resume. What are you going to do in my position? It's
Or even the
definitely a red flag.
communication, like back and forth. Like I'll get text messages, from people and in, my line of work or even colleagues. And I can tell, I'm like, are we having a chat GBT conversation
Right.
back and forth? Like I can tell that you're trying to tiptoe around whatever the situation is. And look, again, for, some level of communication, it's helpful, but it dehumanizes the process and we see it. So
Right.
you're not tricking anyone. Like
Right.
you can see through it. And I feel like that's where you have to, use it as a tool in your business, as something that can help you elevate whatever it is that you originally want to accomplish, but not allowing it to be the front line, be all and end all of
Right.
what you do, because people see it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my son did a project for the science fair, and it was Can AI Fool? So the title was Can AI Fool Your Teacher? And he wrote an essay on a particular topic. He wrote it. We had a few students write essays, and then we trickled in a few AI generated essays. And some of them were so obvious, that it was written by AI. But we went back and said, now rewrite this essay with spelling errors and as if you were a 6th grader or 5th grader. And let me tell you, the teachers could not tell the difference.
Really?
Yeah. So
Scary.
it's scary. But again, you'd have to be intelligent enough to say, can you write that with spelling errors and as if you were a sixth grader? So it kind of
make it less perfect.
it makes it right. But it's, but that person who thinks enough to go back and use it in the proper way, it's kind of creative. It's not it's not necessarily.
Do you
the
feel like
worst.
kids, I feel like, my son will always say to me, like, I can't look at you. Like, he knows I do feel like the schools are trying to really drill it into them that this is not a good idea.
Right.
So they are very, like I'll look, like he'll ask me a question. I don't know the answer. I
Yeah.
haven't done this stuff in a million years. And I'll say, well, let's just ask ChatGPT and see what they say. And then we'll do it. And he's like, I can't write that. That's
Yeah.
exactly, they're going to know,
Well, it's like our form of plagiarism.
Yeah,
Right. When we were
right.
growing up, we knew not to plagiarize. You couldn't just take things from the internet
Right.
and use it, or from a book and use
Right.
it, verbatim. This
Cliff
is
notes.
another, another hurdle that these kids have to cross. So, and again, it very much trickles into the business aspects, even for us.
Right.
You
No,
know?
for sure.
How about red flags of just business ownership in general? So how, what would you say makes a success? What would you say the number one thing is to make a business successful versus not? Your number one. That's a tough question, I know.
Yeah, I have to think about that.
I feel like we've been in positions where we've seen similar businesses, one be very successful and the other not. And I look at that for my own business, right? That's so interchangeable no matter what you do. And I think to myself, what makes this restaurant succeed versus
Right.
this?
Right.
Is it location? Is it advertisement? Is it obviously,
Yeah.
I
don't know. I don't know. I can't really think of what my top one, like number one would be right off the bat. But I do feel like I think about so much of what I see in my field, and I feel like something, we were at a local business that we were really connected to for a long time. And I feel like one of the big things that kept us coming there was community. We felt a sense of community in this, frequenting this one spot. And I feel like when I think about my business, I feel like that's what's made me successful,
Right.
Is my connection to the local community that we live in. And I would imagine that for other small businesses, having that community connection would be really key. If I know that this is, the best spot to get therapy, and I see it around town, and I know the owner, and I see the owner involved in things in the community, and I see that the owner knows other owners and, connects with them and has meaningful relationships outside of just a high and buy type thing. I feel like that brings people together and brings a sense of safety and security. And is a great way to, like if you're coming for something vulnerable, like therapy, or even if you're, doing estate planning where it's a very intimate kind of conversation you're having with people, you want to know that it's going to be somewhere you're going, that you're going to feel safe and you're going to feel comfortable. And it's not going to be, where it's out in the world for everyone, right? There's that confidentiality piece. And I do think that, community brings that, I know I felt really comfortable going to one particular location for a long time that we frequented together because of that element to it. We saw each other every morning. We felt really great about, having all of us there. It became like, then we offshooted and got coffees after, and it just kind of became something that was a part of our routine and felt really good to us because of that community connection. But I don't think that's all there is, right? There has to be other aspects that you bring into your business too that make people feel safe and secure. And I think that's a huge piece to success, is just, that comfortability level.
Well, I know exactly which business you're talking about. And I too, felt that same love for, for the routine and for the business itself. And I think I learned so much from that business owner. Interestingly enough, because there were many times, I sat there and tried desperately to tell them and advise them because I really wanted them to succeed. I loved, going there. And I think one of the things I learned as a business owner is no one wants to hear your dirty laundry,
Mm,
right? Your clients, whether they are patrons at a restaurant or, my clients, your clients, they don't want to hear about the problems you're having with your employees. I
sure.
think as an employer, you almost have to sugarcoat that and protect and insulate your clients from there's zero reason for that,
Yeah,
right?
it's a
And
boundary.
I think you
Yeah.
have to, if that's something, and I think it's actually very important and helpful for business owners to speak with other business owners about their problems. There are
Hmm.
so many organizations out there where you can go and sit down with another business owner and say,
Absolutely.
listen, I'm struggling in this area, right? What can I do? I'm struggling in the hiring process. I'm struggling in the advertising process, whatever the case is. And I think to speak with other business owners, that's great,
Hmm.
right? It's a confidential
Yeah, that's the
area.
point of it.
Right?
That's the point of it.
I think the second that you start airing your dirty laundry and your issues with your own employees, that's where things get a little
Hmm.
hairy. And I do believe that that's something that a business owner has to be careful.
Sure.
Your clients shouldn't know about that at all.
Yeah, there's a level of boundaries that has to kind of be put in place, right? Because you have to save the face of your business. So if you're
Right.
going around telling everybody all the negative things that are going on or the hardships you're experiencing, I'm not sure if that's in an effort to receive some sort of empathy or what the case may be, but ultimately that's going to change the perception that your customers, clients have of you, right? If you
Right.
don't have it together and you're having constant conversations with your customers about the challenges you're facing as a business owner, there's that safety gone that I was
Right.
talking about, right? Like it's
Right.
like that safe feeling doesn't feel safe anymore. You're
Right.
wondering, are they falling, are they going under? Are they not doing as well as we thought? What's creating these environments for staff to constantly be leaving? There's that, it kind of brings up quite a bit. Whereas if you could come in confidently when there is a change, let's say, and I wanted to talk a little bit about changes with red flags because I think that's a big thing. Um, in your business, if you have a change that whether it's for the people that are coming to meet with you or it's your staff themselves kind of coping with the change in a business evolving, that those are things that you want to kind of protect within your business and not necessarily share with your clients until you maybe absolutely necessarily have to, right? If you're having a new person come in and working with the team, to highlight that in a positive way, to feel confident about the person coming in and trying to make your customer or client feel safe with that transition, that you're going to be in good hands. I thoroughly interviewed this person. I feel good about them. I can tell you about them and their experience versus, you know, we had a horrible time with this one and that didn't work. Nobody wants to hear the
Right.
background of why the past things didn't work. What are we doing now about it? How are we addressing it? These things happen. Change happens in businesses all the time. There's going to be transitions, there's going to be shifts, but what are we doing about it so that you can continue to feel safe and comfortable with me as the person you're coming to?
Right, definitely. And I feel like there's a little bit of like a PR element to all
Hmm.
of that, right? I agree with you. Similar situation. If you have employees who are just not working and, your plan is to fire them or they leave,
Right.
right? The last thing that your client wants to hear is all the negativity, right? I'm so sorry. This person was awful. No, they don't want to hear any of that. And honestly, when I start to hear that in a business, it immediately raises a red flag for me. And I know that there's a good chance this business is going under,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
no one wants to think that. And that's not always the case because there are so many situations where, people leave, people come and go,
Right. It's
businesses
life.
experience changes, and it's not the end. But if you make it sound like it's the end, then you're putting yourself in a really precarious situation.
Sure.
So,
And I think that's where, just from a therapy perspective, it's anxiety, right? Like
mhm,
the owner is feeling anxious. She's worried that her place might be going under. She's worried that with all this change, she's not going to survive it. We know as business owners, this is not for the weak hearted. It
mhm,
takes a lot of strength to come rebound from certain situations, to continue forward and to keep, a happy face as you go through that. So I will say that I feel like in moments, if you are a business owner and you're struggling with some of these things, to lean on some help, whether that's delegating, things out so that you're not so anxious and overwhelmed, or talking to someone like a therapist about the struggles that you're experiencing and how you can move through that, finding like proper channels to put that energy rather than putting it into your customers that are coming in. Because again, that's not what your customers want to hear. They want to feel safe. They want to feel secure in your business. And if you're putting out there sort of this anxious, insecure type of mindset, they're going to feel that, and they're probably going to step away or find something different, as a result. So I think so much of it is kind of finding that confidence within yourself to be able to stand behind the great work that you do, and outsourcing your help, whether that's personally, professionally, taking a yoga class, whatever it is, to help decompress yourself so that you can come forward with your best self in stressful moments.
Right. I think also getting to know your clients. I mean, within your client pool, especially in a small business setting,
Yes. Yeah.
so many of us that frequented this particular business, are business owners. So we easily could have helped and wanted to,
Sure.
right? I think the beauty of working in a small community like we do, like we're fortunate enough to, is the fact that we all want to help each other, right? So if you feel you're in a place where okay, my client owns a business,
Yeah.
maybe use that, and ask for help. There's nothing wrong with, asking for advice and kind of soaking that in and seeing if it's
Yeah,
going
and
to help
even
you.
just fostering that conversation, getting to know people on a more personal level, um, in an effort to help your business, right?
Right.
I mean, not that you want to have like all ulterior motives, but I do feel like that brings connection.
Yeah.
I can say I frequent a lot of different businesses in my town and get to know the business owners in my town on a, as a customer, but also on a personal level. And that, definitely helps them promote me when they have someone in mind that they think might be a good fit for my practice. And similarly, if I want the best cup of coffee, I know who to who to suggest they go see,
Right.
so it's kind of works hand in hand in that way.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that personal connection is so key too. I know a few businesses that we have kind of shifted over to. And the fact that they immediately know our names, whether that's scripted or not, and they review it before you set foot in, to their business on that particular day, it's nice. It's kind of nice. And it's, I think that, again, bringing it back to that personal connection and communicating. I mean, it's such an easy task for a business owner. And once you have that down, I really do feel that success is just imminent.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. I do know exactly what you're talking about. And I feel like even just thinking about, I missed a class one day that we, at a new place we're going now, to work out. And the woman, right, I'd only been there a couple of weeks and she's already asking, where am I? Why wasn't I there? But
Because
recognizing,
you're crazy and we're always there.
but recognizing that, I mean, as
Right.
much as it was like, at one point I like thought it was a little
Yeah.
invasive, at the same time, I was like, she did notice.
Well, and she
took
cared
notice
enough.
and she cared enough. And that makes a difference.
And if you think about it, the other business, we would leave for a week after going steady for like 3 months, and she wouldn't even inquire, where'd you go?
Right.
How
How
I
are
have a
you?
client,
What's going on?
I have a client in my office who says to me, I'm going on vacation. I can't, immediately. I'm like, where are you going? It's exciting.
Yeah, right.
It's exciting and it's nice and they're excited. And it's just nice to have that communication with
A
someone.
point of connection. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I'm going to take another little glass here.
okay. Yeah, we're going through this. This is Sparkling Point, right?
Yes.
This, well, so I'll do it for you. It's a nice local bottle. Sparkling Point is out on the east end of Long Island, and they serve only sparkling, right? Sparkling wines. Have you ever been there?
You know what? I've never been there. No,
Okay.
I would like to go check it out. We should make
I
a plan
have,
to do that. Have you been out there?
And we should go back. Yeah, it's nice. It's beautiful. Everywhere on the East End is beautiful, but
Hmm.
it's a beautiful location and they have, very nice wines. So, and this one I don't think I've ever tried before, but clearly we're enjoying
Yeah,
it.
it's delicious. It's nice and light. I like it.
Yeah.
Not too sweet. Um, so one thing I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about was the um, as sort of a red flag, I guess, and I'm sure you've experienced this some in your business too, is just competition, right?
Hmm.
Finding a healthy level of competition. Um, I think for me, I've had some experiences here where coming in and developing my business, I've had some really, really supportive women, which has been so great. I kind of came in sort of with a mindset that everybody was going to be out for themselves in this really competition heavy mindset. And that can be very intimidating if you go into it that way. But what I had found was, especially in sort of some of my first encounters with women and maybe it's sort of my field a little bit too, of just people having a little more self awareness and wanting to be a little bit more welcoming. There were a lot of people that were so willing to help me succeed and wanting me to grow and really paving the way and giving me a path and encouragement and confidence to do it. And so I try to always keep that little bit in mind when I am kind of thinking about collaborating with someone and really trying to always jump in with that collaboration mindset. Any moment that I feel a sense of insecurity come in or a sense of competition, not in a healthy competition way, but almost like in an intimidating way, to really think about, okay, is there a way I can collaborate with this person? Is there a way that we can potentially mutually benefit one another rather than coming in with this like hostile, I'm going to be better than you type attitude? And I really think that for me, that's a huge red flag when I encounter businesses that are so heavy on the competition that there's no room for collaboration, especially we are in a very small community here in Sayville, and there's, an inundation of therapists, and I'm sure law firms too, where the competition could be really heavy if you look at it from that perspective. Whereas if you can shift that mindset and say, okay, how can we work together? You'll both be mutually successful. We all bring something unique and different to our field, no matter, even if we're doing the same exact things. How can we work together in a way that can benefit all of us?
So I think, the reason you're able to do that and you're successful is confidence. And I think that you don't look at a competitor as someone who's going to take away your business because you're confident in the way that you do it. And I think the moment that someone starts to question that, right, and feel threatened by someone else, they should look internally and ask why.
Right.
Because, yes, there are very many elder law and estate planning attorneys on Long Island. And I look to some of them as mentors and think
Sure.
they're fantastic at what they do and I could learn from them. In fact, I have the book that was written by one of the elder law attorneys on Long Island because it's a great resource for me. But I think I'm also confident in the fact that if someone is coming to me, it's for a reason,
Hmm.
right? Whatever the reason may be, and I know that I know what I'm doing, and I'm not threatened by another attorney who's practicing in the same area, right?
Right.
Um, I think that someone who is maybe someone you don't have to worry about too much because clearly they're not as confident in the work that they're doing.
Right.
I mean, it's easy for you to look at even looking at the bigger picture and saying, how can we help each other? That's huge,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that is just shifting your mindset. And that alone sets you at another level than your competition, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
I would say, look, you're always going to have that, right? In life, there's people who are jealous and fighting and trying to climb a corporate ladder, climb a social ladder. And honestly, it's something that you have to just recognize you're good at what you do. You find the positive in everything. And I think really that's just a matter of shifting your mindset.
Yeah. Being able to sort of see through it a little bit, right? Of like,
Yeah.
okay, and again, not to therapize here, but that's what I do, is to see like what's underneath that, right?
Right.
If someone's coming at it where they feel they have to steamroll you or try to take something away from you in some sort of way or outshine you in a really big way that's sort of negative, what's underneath that for them? Why are they feeling the need to do that to you? Why are they feeling the need to target you in that way?
Because you're threatening.
Exactly.
And
To them, right?
to them.
And they're,
Right.
and they're feeling intimidated and insecure about their own work. And it's not to say they don't do great work, but how are they, why is my influence now impacting them so deeply? Because they have stuff they haven't worked on for themselves.
Right.
They have stuff they haven't healed for themselves on, why they feel less than or why they feel the need to, step on someone to feel stronger, right? That's not how you'll be successful ultimately. And I've witnessed that a lot where I feel like it can really take a business down.
Sure.
Because you're so focused on what the other person is doing. I always think of this analogy, and I remember my son ran track for a couple of years, and like the coach would say to him, you have to stay in your lane. You cannot be looking to the guy on the left or the guy on the right, what they're doing, because you're going to trip over your own feet. You have to keep your focus straight ahead. And there's so much to say about that, because if you're so focused on looking at what the other person in your, neighbor at your job is doing, or the other business that's your competition across the street, or whatever the case may be, you're not focusing in on what you need to be doing. You're so distracted that now you're, tumbling and taking a fall, or you're slowing down in your progression. Stay in your lane. Be able to offer opportunities for collaboration if you see it's possible. And really, I mean, maybe this is just me kind of taking like a spiritual element to it, but I always look at it as like, if I'm going to be there to support someone on their growth journey, whether they're an employee of mine that wants to grow and kind of step outside of my practice, or it's a colleague of mine that's asking me questions and needs a little mentorship, that's going to come around again, right?
Sure.
Like that's good energy I'm putting
Karma.
out. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm putting good energy out there. I want everyone to be successful. And I think that when you have that like abundance mindset versus like that scarcity mindset, there's enough for everyone to go around, because everybody brings something unique to the table. And my clients are going to find me, yours are going to find you. And whoever else is out there that needs, those people to do their job, they're going to find them. So trying to kind of let go of that a little bit and look for those moments and opportunities for collaboration.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think there's plenty of work out there for everyone. And I think that the best thing a business owner can do is look to other business owners for information, right? Use everything. Every business owner can teach you something, right? Whether they're
Yeah.
successful, they're not. Why are they successful? What are they doing that makes you as a patron feel good? How can you incorporate that into your own business when you go to a business that you're not comfortable? Why? And just kind of learn. I think
Tuning
life
in,
is
yeah.
just a constant, it's a constant education. And I think the more that you take out of every single moment, the better and more successful you'll be in the future. And again, offering that up to someone else is also huge.
Right.
Being comfortable and willing to teach other business owners and help people along the way is only going to add to your karma.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's all good stuff. Yeah.
Great.
I know. I feel ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah. How can we improve our businesses? What's up next?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a great question, right? And just trying to, tune into ways where we can continue to work together no matter what business we're in. Because I think that's also just a little misconception there of like, oh, well, because I'm in this line of work, I need to only mentor and work with people in this line of work. And that's really not the case, right? We can learn so much from everyone that's doing different things in business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, cheers to us.
Cheers.
And cheers to many more years.
Yes.
of
And to
success.
Sparkling Point. Thank you, Sparkling Point.
Thanks for tuning in today.
Please like and subscribe to our social media channels at Champagne Confidential Podcast.